attributes.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that it's an addition to the mind. It's my mind or my will, for example.
Okay.
I might have certain characteristics, but that doesn't mean it's a multiplicity. It's still one.
Are any of those thoughts or actions that come out of your mind equivalent to the entirety of your mind?
Thoughts that come out of my mind, I don't know what that means.
So you likened the understanding of the attributes to your mind and thoughts, right?
Say that slower, I'm not following.
You likened the attributes of Allah to human thoughts and how multiple things can come out of human thoughts.
No, I was just explaining the difference between what is, something can be one and still have attributes.
Okay.
Attributes do not contradict that oneness.
Okay, but here is the issue with that.
Why?
Do any of the attributes of the mind, your mind, equate to the entirety of your mind? Or are they a part of your mind?
Are you talking about God now or his mind?
It's still my mind. It's still my mind. My mind can operate, for example. My mind can have attributes. It's still my mind. It doesn't become a second mind or a third mind.
Okay, so all of the attributes of your mind equate to your entire mind.
It's one mind. My mind can have certain attributes and it can have certain thoughts.
How do they relate to the one mind, is what I'm saying? Are they equal to the entire mind or like a percentage of the entire mind? These attributes of the mind.
I don't know what that means. The mind is not a material thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Neither are the attributes, correct? Of Allah.
They're not
Because
material.
I'm guessing the only reason we're talking about the mind is because we're trying to liken that to Allah's attributes. I'm guessing.
It's an analogy, yeah.
Yes, as an analogy. Perfect. So my problem that I'm having when it comes to Allah as quote unquote the mind and his attributes as the attributes of the mind is because I can't see anywhere in Sunni understanding of Allah where these attributes are well described in relation to Allah. So are they distinct from Allah? Are they the same thing as Allah? And since there are many of them, do they make up Allah? Or are they just parts of Allah?
No, you can't use that type of language to talk about the mind. It doesn't, even the way that you're describing it right now, it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
The mind is not like a box or like a globe. The mind is not a material thing that you can compartmentalize in that way. In the same way that Allah can. So when we talk about the Trinity, for example, the disanalogy between the oneness of Allah and a Trinity is that the Father, Son, and the Spirit are three separate minds and three separate wills.
There's only one mind and one will.
So answer this question. So can the Father think I am the Son?
So that's a matter of identity, and that doesn't apply.
Why not? Can the Father say I am the? Can the Father think I am the Son?
So Daniel, you've jumped a second. I am happy to discuss that with you, but before we do, I would like to have tie a knot around the attributes of Allah parts. Are you okay with that?
I don't understand what your claims are.
So my claim is this:
the mind doesn't have parts because you have thought or because you have. That's not how a mind is.
So defining a part as something that does not equate to the whole of a thing. Are you okay with that?
A part is not a whole of a thing.
Something that does not equate to the whole of a thing. A window is a part of a car, but it is not the car itself.
You're making a category mistake. You're thinking about a car, you're thinking about a material object, and you're thinking about compartmentalizing it.
Okay.
That's not the same as the will. Like, what is a will? So if I will to pick up this cup, is that a separate will than if I will to, touch him on the shoulder? It's not two separate wills. It's one will, correct?
It would be one.
It's
will,
one. Okay, it's one will.
Distinctive actions, right? Now
it's still one will, though.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now,
your original point was God is one in Islam. But he has attributes, and that seems to contradict his oneness. And I explained that just like the will can operate in different ways, it's still one will.
Okay. So that would mean that the attributes are not distinct. They are all the same thing, simply actioned in different ways. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Warith, they're all the same thing.
I didn't say that.
But you see, your analogies are pointing in that direction.
No, but so my position, and this is a broader Salafi position,
Okay.
is that when we start using this kind of philosophical language to
Okay.
talk about God, it will lead us astray. And I'll give you an analogy. So imagine that you have a cloud, okay?
A cloud.
A cloud, like a cloud
Okay,
or
sure.
a mist or a fog. And a fog, by its very nature, is indistinct. It is something that is indistinct. It doesn't have very clear-cut attributes. For example, it's a cloud. If you begin to carefully define the cloud in a very precise way, and you get more and more exact, and you build up this extensive definition and explanation and description of what that cloud is, then by the very nature of your extrapolation, you have gone further away from what the cloud actually is, which is something indistinct, is something ambiguous, is something that you cannot exactly comprehend.
Okay.
In the same way, there are aspects of the unseen, which include, for example, Allah, different attributes of the angels, different attributes of heaven and hellfire, that the human mind in its limited form cannot fully grasp and cannot
Okay.
fully comprehend. Now, if you engage in a kind of speculative theology to try to create distinct definitions and explanations, then according to my view and the view of many Islamic scholars, going all the way back to Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, or Imam Ahmad and others, and some of the Salaf as well, they're part of the Salaf, then you are going to stray or get further from the reality of what the unseen is and the reality of who Allah is. Do you understand that?
So that would all be valid if only Allah didn't actually tell you that the most beautiful names belong to Him, right?
Yeah, He's
So
described Himself
the mist
according
has
to His
actually
majesty.
described so in this instance, right, the mist has described itself to you. And now you're trying to understand exactly what the descriptions of the mist are.
No, it's very clear to understand. These names and attributes of Allah, they're very clear to understand.
Okay.
Every Muslim reads the Quran, they read these descriptions, and they understand. To take a further step and say we need to systematize this and add further description,
I don't mean
some will do that, some Islamic scholars will do that, and I have no problem. But a lot of Islamic scholars, and I take this position, they don't engage in that kind of speculative
Right.
theology.
But here's the issue
So
with
that's the
that.
difference between my position and maybe some of the people that you
But I
debate
would
with
say that
elsewhere.
You need to engage in it because otherwise you have
Why?
to concede that the definitions you're given of these beautiful names in the Quran don't actually have any real meaning.
They do, it's very clear. Ar-Rahman, it's very clear what Rahman means.
Sure.
Al-Wadud, the loving, it's very clear what
Okay.
Al-Wadud means.
Now,
I understand that.
does it mean the
We've been
exact
reading
same
these
thing?
verses in the Quran.
Okay.
The vast majority of Muslims, 99.9999%, they read the Quran
Okay.
on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. They have no question about these terms. They don't need to engage in speculative
Here's the
theology
problem.
in order to understand Allah, to worship Him, to submit to Him.
I understand that. But
That's not the
here's
same with the Trinity, see?
Yeah,
The Trinity,
again, you're
the
saying
average
something
Christian
that we haven't
will
yet
read
switched
about the
over.
Trinity and will not understand the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three, yet they're one.
Okay.
The average
Like
Christian
I
will
told
not
you,
understand that.
We can get to that, and I'm happy
Let's
to
get to
that.
it. Let's
I'm
get
happy
to it.
I would just like you to come to a conclusion with me about these attributes. If you say that everyone knows what al-wadud is and al-warid means, right? Does it mean the exact same thing it means when human beings showcase these attributes?
No, of course it's thing.
What does it mean then? Because ultimately, the same problem applies. The descriptions are given, but we have no idea what they mean because we can't
You
even
can.
compare them to anything.
You can. Do you know what a game means?
Sorry?
Do you know what a game means?
A-G-A-M-E.
G-A-M-E. Do you know what game means?
Yeah, for
Define
example,
game for me.
Within the word of within the English language, game could be a kind of animal that you hunt.
No,
It could also
give
be
me
an
the definition of
event.
game, please.
It could be an event.
Don't give me examples. Give me
an
what
event
definition of a
that
game.
You participate in for leisure, usually involving some kind of competition.
What if it's a word game?
Sorry?
What if it's a word game?
Same thing, yeah.
What if it's a crossword puzzle? It's not a competition.
It would be because
Your
you are
definition doesn't
going
apply to a
against-
crossword game.
You're going against somebody else,
There-
correct?
Your definition doesn't apply to all the uses of the word game.
Okay.
So you can understand the word game,
Okay.
but you can't define it.
I can. I just did for you.
You did not. Your definition
We
of
can
game did
define
not
game.
include many examples of game that I
Well,
could give
it
you.
would depend
You
on
say
the
it's a
category of what you're
competition
saying.
for leisure. What about the Olympics? Is the Olympics leisure? No, it's for professionals.
No, but
What about the
it's a
NBA?
leisurely
What about
conversation.
professional cricketers?
It's not necessary.
It's not for leisure. It's a sport, right? It's a competitive
And that is
sport
why-
for money. So your
we have
definition
to
did
do
not
one thing.
include them.
That's fine.
So you don't understand the word game.
We do, and we can apply it to multiple different things. But the problem still remains with all of Allah's names.
No.
Are
The point.
there
You missed the
any
point. You
definitions
missed the
that we
point.
can give?
You can understand something without being able to give a definition. You can understand a concept or a
So
term
how do you
like game
understand-
or happy.
I'm trying to, but this camera's on my way.
Come around.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's gonna be a waste of time.
Okay. How you doing, Daniel? I shake your hand, but I'm a Christian, so I'm very happy on or something. But yeah,
We can shake the hands of Christians.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know who you are, but
Never heard that.
I'm just David. Well, he said it to David Wood apparently. You know, once upon a time.
about what?
Yeah, apparently, if you go into a Christian's house, there's pee everywhere. Apparently, according to you. I'd like to know where you got
That
that
was the
from.
response to David Wood's insult against Islam.
Guys, can I get some space or
enough.
you want to get real close?
It's enough. What
It's
you have
enough.
is enough.
Daniel, you cool with me being
I mean,
here?
if they can see that on camera, if
Absolutely
you can
can
just
see me.
turn around.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so with the mist example, with the cloud example, the mist and the cloud being Allah in this instance, as an analogy, not in reality, they've actually described some things about themselves to you, about the compartmentalization.
I
of
didn't say the
themselves to
mist
you.
has no description.
No. So you said that the mist exists, but it's something a little bit abstract that we can't quite understand. We can look deeply into the mist, maybe know it's like a chemical compound, whatever the case might be. But we've dived so deep in that instance that we've lost the perception of what the actual mist is.
We've lost
So-
the essence of what
Of what
it
mist
actually
is. So Allah has attributes. If we dive too deep into them, then we'll lose the sense of who Allah is.
This is something that's generally in language. Many concepts, like in philosophy, the Greek philosophers, for example, want to define justice.
Okay.
Or you want to define happiness, or you want to define law.
Okay.
And you reach a point where definitions aren't satisfying and they actually tend to obscure the reality of that concept
Okay.
because of the analysis that you're engaged in.
Sure thing.
There was a period within the 20th century, there was a philosophical movement of ordinary language philosophers who said that this is a big problem with any kind of speculative analysis or philosophical analysis, the ordinary language philosophers. So this is, I think, a very deep critique of the entire approach of trying to analyze something that is so beyond human reason, or is so complex, or is so abstract or general. We can still have an understanding of those things. We can understand what law is. We can understand what happiness is. We can understand what a game is. We can understand it, even if we cannot give a precise analytic definition that covers all cases of our usage of that term.
Okay, sure. But then now, is there any definition you can give to Allah being merciful at all that actually captures the definition of what it means at all? Can we compare Allah's mercy to anything on earth to understand what it actually means when Allah calls himself either al-Warith or something?
Yeah, Allah's mercy is compared in Hadith, for example,
Okay.
that Allah divided His mercy into 100
100
parts,
and kept 99 for himself. and gave
99
one
for
to-
himself
Okay.
and one for himself, and like the mercy that a mother
Yep.
deer has,
Yep.
for example,
When it
not
doesn't step
stepping on
its
its
baby.
child.
Yep.
So those are descriptions that are given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That does help us understand what this mercy is. Does
Okay.
that mean that we have a comprehensive, 100% encompassed understanding of
Probably not.
Ar-Rahman?
Okay.
We can, because it's something that's infinite. It's something that is really beyond our understanding. But we can still get some understanding of it through the word Ar-Rahman, the name of Allah.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm glad you admitted that. The last part of this, before we can move on to your Trinity stuff, if you'd like, is then when you have all these 99, potentially more attributes,
Potentially more.
are they really distinct, or are they just the same thing?
I don't know what that means. I don't know what
So,
distinct means.
Are they the same as the other? So is Al-Rahman the same thing as Al-Rahim?
It's a different attribute.
Okay, so there's a distinction between them. They are not the same thing. That's all it means.
They're different attributes.
In the
yeah,
same
you
way
wanna
that
say
like
they're the same.
my two fingers are distinct. They're not quite the same.
Yeah, they're different
Right?
attributes.
Awesome.
Just like
So-
you can say that Daniel,
Yep.
in some moments he can be merciful, in some moments he can be angry.
And those two are distinct.
They're distinct, but
Yep.
Daniel is still one person.
Okay.
I have one mind, I have
Okay.
one will.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Allah, are these attributes both distinct and eternal?
Yes. They're eternal attributes. Yeah.
Okay, so there's eternally distinct attributes. And are they a part of Allah or the whole of Him?
Again, I don't understand this part
So
saying that it's
you
one
have
compartment
Allah.
or another. Just in the same way that Daniel can be described as angry at
Yep.
times or merciful at times,
Right.
that doesn't mean that anger is a part of my mind.
But it would be. So the emotion of anger would be an emotion that you would feel, but it wouldn't be the whole of your emotional spectrum. So it'd be a part of it, as an example.
But that doesn't mean that it's a part in the sense of a part. You're equivocating on the word part.
So
That's the problem.
Part meaning it is not the whole. It is not equivalent to the whole. That's all it means. You have an emotional spectrum. You can be happy,
It's
sad,
an attribute of me
gleeful.
without necessarily being a part in that way.
It's a part if it's not equal to the whole.
That's
if
not the
you're-
way that I use part.
How would you use parts?
As an attribute. As an attribute. I have the attribute of sometimes
Okay.
being merciful, sometimes being angry, without saying that is a part. I have a distinct part of me that is the anger part of me.
Okay, so it's a component.
We don't
of-
talk like that, right?
We don't. But
Okay.
it's a component of without being the whole of. So it's a part.
It's an aspect of my personality.
Aspects and parts are the same thing.
No, the way that you're using part is that
Okay.
this is a part, like this is a component.
Let's use aspects. Same thing. Okay? So are these aspects of Allah really distinct where they are not one another?
I already said that you
Okay.
know, they're distinct.
And they're eternal. Because they've always been there along with Allah.
Okay.
So, if that is the case, what you ultimately have is you have 99 plus really distinct eternal things that are next to Allah.
No.
So they share in the attributes of Allah in that they are distinct, they are not one another, and then they are separate from Allah, yet they are still also eternal. So ultimately,
But I
in a
denied
way,
that
you
entire
have 99
premise.
gods.
I denied that entire premise.
But you didn't.
In the
They
same
are
way that
distinct and they're
I have
eternal.
99 attributes or 1,000 different
That are
attributes that I
created,
have.
right?
They're not. That doesn't mean there are 1,000 Daniels.
Wait, but your attributes are created,
Yes.
and they're not eternal.
So why is that relevant to the
Because
analogy?
with Allah, Allah is the only thing that's eternal. Well, it should be.
yes.
But then if the attributes are distinct from Allah but are also eternal, that would mean that for as many attributes as you have eternal things that are really distinct from Allah.
No, they're not distinct from, just in the same way that anger is not distinct from my mind or from my will. Those attributes are not distinct from Allah.
Is anger...
They're not distinct from.
So-
Anger is not the whole of me, right?
So it's an aspect of part.
I said it's an aspect,
Right?
yeah.
And then that would
This is
then...
going in a
No,
circle.
well, we are going in circles. You're not quite getting what I'm saying here.
That's true. I don't get what you're
Because
saying.
ultimately, by the thought process that we've gone through, Allah has His attributes, but they are eternal as He is, but they are also distinct, and they are aspects of Him, and not the whole. So therefore, we have 99 plus eternal attributes that are next to Allah, but they are really distinct from Him because they are not equal to Him.
You're equivocating
So
on the
you
word
basically
distinct,
have 99
part,
gods.
all of this.
Yeah.
This is equivocation. It's still just like if I was eternal, in that
Yes.
I'm immortal. I won't
Yep.
die.
Yep.
And I have anger. I have love. I have mercy.
And they're also eternal
They're
and distinct.
They're distinct aspects of
Right.
me. Does that mean that there are 1,000 different Daniels?
So-
just because I'm immortal?
I guess this will be the...
Yes or no?
this
Yes
will-
or no?
So this
Yes
will
or
be
no?
the main qualifier.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
The main qualifier
Yes or
would
no?
then be...
Yes or no?
Do you think that
Yes or
these
no?
attributes are abstract in the mind?
Is anger an abstract thing?
You could say it is, yes. Because abstract to me, it's in the mind and it has no causal power.
Yeah, anger does have causal power.
No.
I get angry and I swing at someone.
No, but that would be the causal power of the swing, not the anger. The anger can
No,
lead you to that
the
point.
anger causes me to act.
Right, but anger doesn't actually have any real placement in the real world.
No, why? And this is exactly the kind of speculation
Okay,
that
wait, okay.
leads
So
us nowhere. It just takes us nowhere.
We can have things that are concrete, just in reality, like you and me and these cameras, and things that are abstract.
Is anger real?
I would say it's abstract. It's in the mind, it has no causal power.
Does any thought, does anything in the mind have causal power?
Arguably not.
Then how are we able to live? How can we walk? How are you talking to me right now?
I would say that all comes from something called secondary causality that God has given to us. But as a Muslim, you can't hold to that.
So it's really God. I don't know what that means. Explain.
Before we go there, I think this can actually tie
No. Let's stay right here. Let's stay right here. It's very important for us to understand what you mean by nothing in the mind can cause anything in the world.
It can tie into a Trinity conversation actually.
Like, do you have a will, for example?
Before we venture too far away.
Is will abstract?
1 second, Daniel.
No.
Before you go too far away, because you asked me a question before and I didn't answer, I gave you 2 qualifiers. You asked me before that is the attributes different from Allah, yes or no, in the same way that your anger is different from your will, yes or no. And to answer you, I was just telling you that there are 2 kinds of ways that we can qualify things, either by being abstract, in the mind, has no causal power, or by being concrete, exists in reality and has causal powers.
No, but we don't agree on the mental attributes not having causal powers. We don't agree on that.